clamps are one of the most important elements of equipment in almost every workshop, whether you are working with wood or metal or doing some DIY projects. With the help of clamps, you can press, hold, and they often serve as a third hand. Almost every tool is more or less universal. The proof is Antony's second rule of force, which states that at a certain moment, every tool becomes a hammer. Sometimes, even the most versatile tools cannot be used, or it is at least complicated. I swear by F-clamps, but there are cases when it is better, or even necessary, to reach for another type of clamping device. And how many are there? When you look into the catalogs of major manufacturers and sellers, you'll be amazed. Parallel clamps, one-handed clamps, C-clamps, bar clamps, rail clamps, frame clamps for picture frames, eccentric clamps, joint clamps, hold-down clamps, and the largest category are special clamps, which includes everything else. And so this time I selected only two types that are a suitable complement to universal F-clamps. These are pipe clamps and press clamps. One of the strengths of clamps, known as stiffeners, is the extension of the arms, which typically ranges from 60 to 300 millimeters and allows the clamping force to act at the appropriate distance from the edge of the workpiece. At the same time, this is also their weakness, as the force acting on the arm creates a moment of force, which causes bending stress on the guide rods of the clamp, instead of the more advantageous tensile stress. The longer the arm, the greater the bending stress at the expense of tensile stress. If you over-tighten or if the clamp is not of sufficient quality, it can lead to permanent deformation of the bar. It follows that it is more advantageous for the force to act as close to the axis of the bar as possible. In other words, when the arms or jaws are as short as possible. In many applications, this is not a disadvantage at all, such as when firing from a joint or a body, or when pulling pins in from trains. For demanding operations, you will need heavy bar clamps, but often you can get by with relatively light and, above all, readily available pipe clamps. The shorter the jaws are, the longer the bar can be. Thanks to the clever idea of using standard steel plumbing pipes, you only need to buy the jaws, which you can then screw on and slide onto a pipe of any length. Commonly used are 1/2 and 3/4 heavy-walled steel pipes, but one side must have a cut thread onto which a jaw with a handle is screwed. The second special jaw is slid onto the opposite end and automatically secured in the desired position by a locking rack that literally bites into the pipe. The advantage is its affordability. You can find an old water pipe in the countryside for a beer, but if it doesn't have threads, you'll need to cut it with a threading tool. Therefore, for some people, it may be more advantageous to buy a pipe at the hardware store with a pre-made thread. A meter of such galvanized 1/2-inch or 3/4-inch pipe can be found for under $100. Jaws for 2 clamps are commonly available at uni-max for just under $600, so a 1-meter clamp will cost you a maximum of $400. Additionally, you could easily switch the jaws onto a longer pipe. When a meter isn't enough, you can have a 2-meter clamp, and that's only at the cost of the pipe. Another option for extension is to connect pipes with a coupling. A 1/2-inch coupling costs just a few crowns. You usually buy pipe tubes with threads on both ends. Originally, I wanted to cut one of them off, but then I realized that it could be used for joining. In some applications, the clamp may obstruct or damage the surface, but this problem can be resolved. Pipe clamps do bend a little, but only under really high clamping force. The fact that the pipe usually rests along its entire length on the workpiece also helps to prevent bending. For example, with joint clamps, you can also compensate for deflection by placing another clamp on the opposite side. And one last observation, the jaws will take about 10 centimeters off the length of the pipe, so with a 1-meter pipe clamp, you will only have approximately 90 centimeters of usable length. On the completely opposite end are the press clamps known as pokey. These are designed for pressing on a flat surface, where tools with the longest arms cannot reach. Similar to the jaws for pipe clamps, the pads are also just a semi-finished product that cannot be used on their own. They are designed to fit into frames that you must create yourself. Depending on the desired style, you can choose a wooden or steel frame. Naturally, wooden frames are simpler to manufacture, as large holes for dowels can be drilled into wood much more easily than into steel. Wood may not allow for the development of such pressure when clamping, but for most carpentry tasks, such as gluing laminated boards, it is sufficient. Choose the length of the frame clamps according to the dimensions of the workpiece. The height can be adjusted thanks to a series of holes in the uprights. And finally, there is again the financial aspect. You can buy a pressing clamp for just under $200, and for your hard-earned money, you will get a solid piece of metal, specifically cast iron and steel. Once you discover the magic of pipe clamps and jigs, you'll find that your options and abilities have significantly expanded. You can easily create a great joint board, or glue two boards together to make a truly solid workbench top. Moreover, I find both of these types of clamps appealing because with a bit of skill, you can achieve really high performance at a low cost. My name is Tomasz Krasinski. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Woodworking.